a a fantastic run into the Christmas period, which is always difficult in the Premier League. For some reason, Sky likes to stack up the games around Christmas rather than giving anyone a break. And then 12 months after being bottom of the table, there you stood at the very top. Where was your head at that point? Did it feel real?
No, absolutely not. And I think if you ask most reasonable Leicester City fans, you would say that none of it had really even started to sink in at that point. And the sort of the inner pessimists came out in all of us, I think. And all we were thinking was, okay, yeah, great. When's it going to end? When are the defeats going to start rolling in? And when are we going to start getting found out? So no, I don't think it felt real. And I think, yeah, we were waiting for the sort of the grim black dog of reality to come around the corner and bite.
Absolutely. So, also another amazing story from this period of time is Jamie Vardy, who was at the very least at that time and certainly still is one of your top strikers. Went and broke Ruud van Nistelrooy's goal scoring record in consecutive games, scoring 13 goals over 11 games. And what's really fascinating about that to me is like Jamie Vardy was never supposed to make it.
No, his story is an incredible one, and they've talked about films, and he's released an autobiography which has got pride of place on my bookshelf. And you look at, I think it's 3 years before he was breaking Ruud van Nistelrooy's record, he was in something like the 6th or 7th tier of English football or something like that, playing at Stocksbridge Steels in Sheffield and Halifax Town, actually, just for there's a nice link and segue back to you. It was he was a very unfashionable lower league footballer who was blessed with a great deal of pace and a good eye for goal. Absolutely not in any way would he have. I don't think he have thought that he would have done what he did in the sort of that period between sort of the summer and November in 2015.
So of course, it all comes down to an amazing sort of run in towards the end. It looked somewhat shaky at times, but Leicester just stayed at the top of the table. And eventually, with a 2-0 victory at Sunderland, and along with Tottenham Hotspur beating Manchester United 3-0, Leicester City, for the first time in their history, qualified for the UEFA Champions League. Where was your head at there? Because, I can tell you right now, as a Liverpool fan, you can't take that for granted.
So now it was seeming real. I think it was about a month before that. It was a game against Manchester City, and I remember it so vividly. It was bitterly cold, and I was in a packed out pub with a few friends, and we took the lead. I think it was Robert Huth, of all people, got us a goal within sort of 3 or 4 minutes, and we were taking it to Man City, and we were playing out of our skins, and I think we ended up winning that game 3-1. And I think it was after that game for a lot of fans that it was like, right, now it feels real. And I think the team probably felt that as well, because like you said, there was a sort of a very shaky period where Leicester were very much going into their shells, playing really defensive football, and we were absolutely scraping by, winning games like 1-0, 1-0, 1-0, loads of 1-0 victories that we were hanging on by the skin of our teeth. But we were, crucially, we were doing it, we were winning. So yeah, with every game that passed, the nerves just went up and up and up.
So, 2nd of May, 2016. I'm going to take you back to that day.
Another day that I remember very well.
I remember myself because, at this point, Liverpool's season was what it was at this point. We had appointed Klopp and things were looking up, but, I wasn't... the Premier League held very little intrigue for me at this point. So 2nd May, the battle.
I was in the Battle of Stamford Bridge. Yeah, sorry, I'm cutting you off there, but I was in Riley's snooker and pool club in the centre of Leicester, And it's, again, the most excited / nervous I've ever been for a football game that hasn't featured either Leicester City or England. The atmosphere inside the city was incredible. Inside, Riley's was incredible for a Tottenham Hotspur Chelsea game. And it was bizarre. It was at times horrible to watch, especially when Tottenham, they took the lead. They got a second goal, and you just thought, right, okay, that's that then. On to the next week. We'll win it next week. But
yeah, I remember the thing I remember about that game more so than anything else is how absolutely insanely scrappy it was. Like I've seen hockey games that were less violent than that soccer game was, or that football game was. Like absolutely just studs up, just tackles coming in from every which way, and Tottenham throwing away their chance, because I mean they were in with a shout to win the title. They were sort of in the Manchester City position when we were at the top of the table just a couple seasons earlier. It was certainly not outside of the realm of possibility that we were going to be seeing a Tottenham Hotspur win of the Premier League, but this game was enough to propel you to Leicester City being only, I believe, the sixth unique team to win the Premier League title. So
yeah, which shows how elite the Premier League has been, and I think it's really difficult for sort of fans who aren't really, who don't get football and don't get English football particularly, just how sort of elitist the Premier League is, and the sort of that sort of top echelon of 4 to 6 teams, depending on which season it is, and then the massive gap in terms of the money that they've got to spend, the talent they've got at the disposal, etc., the massive gap between the haves and the have-nots. It's so difficult to get that across to a non-fan. To see that achievement unfold was it was mind-boggling.
Well, I mean, just to, from a North American standpoint, it's very, very different how English football in particular, but football in Europe and around the world is sort of organized. It's very different than North American sports. There is no equalization payments. There is no salary cap. There is no franchise system. Essentially, you have the money that you have, and you purchase the players that you can purchase with that money, and you pay them what you can pay based on the money that you bring in. And of course, if you make it to the Premier League, you're going to bring in oodles and oodles of cash from TV rights. But by the same token, your top teams, your Chelseas, your Manchester Uniteds, your Manchester Cities, your Liverpools, Arsenal, to a certain extent Tottenham, they have this amazing brand built around them. Leicester City, no one really knew who. Of course, I did because I was a fan of the sport, but no one knew who Leicester City was. I remember this being big news on the radio in the morning. CBC Radio in the morning, which I listen to, which is our BBC, except the BBC is much better than the CBC, but let's not get into it. CBC Radio in the morning here in Halifax, they'll cover the major baseball, the major hockey, and then they'll cover very, very briefly, Tottenham got knocked out of the Champions League. Manchester City and Liverpool are through, but they won't mention anything else. But they did focus on the fact that here's Leicester City, out of nowhere, the Foxes win the Premier League title. So how drunk did you get that night?
I was quite restrained, actually. I do remember throwing a near full pint of cider over my wife at the time, which she was obviously delighted with. But no, I think I was quite restrained, actually. I remember the journey back to from Riley's to my house is usually about a 15-20 minute car journey, and I think it took us about an hour and 15 minutes that day. And we were just absolutely soaking it all in. There were people out on the street, air horns, car horns everywhere. People were sort of gathering around the stadium to celebrate, and just to be there and to soak in that atmosphere was it was pretty special.
And of course, Jamie Vardy was having a party.
Jamie Vardy was having a big party. There is rumours that there was vodka and Charlie at said party.
Vodka with gummy bears inside of it, as I understand.
Absolutely, special recipe.
So I mean, like one of the most amazing stories in sport, really. Like I think I said this on what will be last week's episode that I just finished recording today, as you and I are recording this conversation. Obviously, like I want Liverpool to win the title every year, but to get to
it will happen. It will happen one day, John.
Let's keep on hoping. Like, you know. In the meantime, I keep on drinking. But you know, to keep on to see Leicester City win the title, like that's why you watch sports, isn't it? Like that kind of story is why you watch, like why you spend time giving a shit about overpaid prima donna athletes. Like that's what this game is all about, isn't it?
Everybody loves an underdog, especially, you know, in England. Nobody ever likes to root for the favourite. We all like to see the favourites fall. And we became everybody's second favourite team that season, and yeah, it was really, really cool to see everybody sort of rooting for us and hoping that we would do it. And you know, it's still an unbelievable story to look back on it now, and it's, you know, it's the ultimate underdog story of the past. I can't think of another one that surpasses it, certainly in my lifetime. And it's something that is very special.
No, absolutely. And I mean, like, just to build onto this, like, you didn't have you didn't have a terrible season the next season. You didn't have a fantastic season either. It certainly wasn't, you know, you didn't re-qualify for the Champions League, but you did go fairly far in the Champions League, as I recall. Like, you made it out of the group stages, and was it past the first knockout round as well? Like,
we did. We beat Sevilla over two legs, and
which I never hate seeing. I don't care for Sevilla.
No, Sevilla. Yeah, they've bit, and again, you know, that wasn't a small achievement, because, you know, Sevilla had won the Europa League, I think, for the two previous seasons.
Yes, they did.
Yeah, I can't remember who they beat in one of those. No, my memory's a little fuzzy. But no, they were.
As far as I know, the Europa League actually ended after the semifinals.
Yes, the final was just.
It was just called off that year. We had that wonderful night at Anfield against Dortmund, and you know, that. What else do we really need to talk about?
That's all that's worth remembering, isn't it? That year, absolutely. So yeah, you know, they were really building a reputation for themselves as a bit of a European powerhouse. So for us to you know, as the minnows that we were, playing our unfashionable counter-attacking style. To go and beat them over two legs was, again, another incredible footnote to that story, and fell to another of our nemesis, Atletico Madrid, who every time we seem to get to Europe. So when we qualified for what used to be the UEFA Cup back in the late 90s, early 2000s, it always seemed to be Atletico Madrid that were waiting around the corner to knock us out, and so it transpired again. But yeah, it was a great run, and again, another unfathomable thing to think that little Leicester City had got to the quarterfinals of the biggest cup competition in Europe.
Absolutely. So after that amazing season, sort of the wheels started to come off, as you mentioned. You know, eventually, when you play such a successful system, and that's pretty much Plan A, and Plan B is Plan A but harder. You do get found out. I don't think that's unfair to say. What I do think, and what I do remember, and I remember talking to you about this at the time, and I felt really bad as well, was there was a lot of talk in the media around Claudio Ranieri's sacking, specifically that the players were really advocating for it behind his back to the ownership.
Yeah. You know, you're always a bit sceptical about what you read and what you hear in the media, and I think, you know, the club was under such a microscope anyway from the previous season, and Ranieri had got so many sound bites, and was a bit of a darling of the media, I think, and was always going to was always going to be a bit of a favourite for them. But I think, I'm not sure about all of the rumours that you hear. I think